Hi, everyone, and welcome to Influence, how anyone can build a brand on LinkedIn and find success. I'm going to turn it over in just a moment here to Joel, who is the master of all things, but to moderate this session. But I just wanted to jump in real quick and give a quick announcement. One of our speakers had a family emergency this afternoon, so shifted a couple of the sessions around. This is the only session that's running right now. We moved the other session that was supposed to be running right now back an hour, and then the last session is still in the right place. So if things moved around on you a little bit, yeah, that happened. And the speaker who's not able to join today, we're going to do a Zoom recording with him later this week or next week, and we'll get it out to all the folks who joined today. So with that, Joel, master of all things, I yield the floor to you.
Thank you. I take that. I love that introduction. But you guys will quite quickly see I am the master of maybe everything LinkedIn, hopefully, but that would be probably it. So anyway, I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited about this conversation. And luckily, I've been briefed on who I'm speaking with here. And I think we had a little back channel. We're going to try something insane. So Jared, I'm looking forward to see what you have for us. You were driving kind of a rebellion in the back channel. But I'm going to give some brief introductions. We'll get into the conversation. And then, one of the things that I want to do is just open it up to questions as well. So we'll run it Clubhouse style. If you've got questions, you can press that little mic button and we can get you on stage. But let's jump into some introductions here. So we have three great speakers. We've got Kim Kelp. I got that right? After I listened to your LinkedIn, you say it like 5 times on there, so I'm glad I got that right. But Kim is the founder of Bright Ideas Only. She is an accomplished keynote speaker. She's a LinkedIn learning instructor as well, which means that LinkedIn actually publishes her teachings, and she's all official. She is the host of Coffee with Kim, which I just got to check out as well, which is super cool. And from worldwide stages to her online courses, Kim's mission is to invest in yourself, your career, and your network. And she's garnered praise from clients such as American Express, YPO, and TEDx. So welcome, Kim. Great to see you. We also have Jared Robin, who is the co-founder of Rev Genius and the co-host of Revenue. Here I have, but Rev Genius is exactly. So Rev Genius is a community of 12,000 engaged revenue generating sales and marketing professionals. If you haven't seen their community on LinkedIn, I don't know where you've been. But Jared's hack. So this is a hack. This is one of his hacks, is to show up every day or consistently on LinkedIn and give back to others. And I'm 100% in line with you with that. And then last and not least, we have Steve Schmidt, who is the president and CEO of Untitled. He leverages the art of conversational intelligence and intent data with the science of high-tech solutions with the art of high-touch communications. And in 12 months, Steve has stood up Tidal and has helped his clients close $150 million in revenue. So there's the introductions. It's great to be here with you guys. I want to start off with this. Okay, so we've got this question here. When it comes to LinkedIn, when it comes to social media, first of all, let's talk about influence. I want to find out like what your guys' definition of like influencer is, and whether or not you consider yourself an influencer. So Kim, why don't we start with you? I'd love to hear your thoughts on, again, what you think an influencer is and whether or not you would consider yourself one.
Yeah, I mean, I might have an unpopular opinion on this, but I think we are all influencers, and there might be some reluctant influencers, but at the end of the day, if you are a human who has friends or family or people around you that think that your opinions are valid, then you are influencing. Whether it's, hey, I thought that restaurant that just opened downtown is really good, and now your friend's going to check it out. Or, hey, I thought this gift for our niece would be great for the holidays, and then your family goes out and buys that gift. Like, you are influencing other humans. Now, you might not want to call yourself an influencer and you might reject that notion, but you are. So I think the answer that I would say is that we all are influencers. What scale, the amount of humans you are influencing yes, it could be something very small, like your friends, your family, your inner circle, or you could be someone online with hundreds of thousands of followers, in which case your circle is just like a little bit bigger.
For sure. So you would consider everybody an influencer then? So you would consider yourself an influencer? Cool. What's your definition? Like your quick definition for like how you would define an influencer? Like if you had a one-liner.
My one-line influence definition would be: you are a person with recommendations that other people take into consideration.
Love it. Yeah, I'm with you. Jared, how about you? What do you think? Like, how would you define influencer? And then would you consider yourself an influencer? Why or why not? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a super interesting question, and I love that previous answer. I agree with that. How I've traditionally looked at influencer is somebody that gets paid for their likelihood, their likeliness, that's even the right word, on social media, right, to do things. And under my definition, I'm not, but this is why this is such a good question, right? Like, I'm just a person trying to help other people, and we've started a community of a lot of people to do that. And while I might be one of the co-founders, it's very much in our interest to have others empowered and help others, which actually probably leads best to the previous definition of influencer if you want to go down that route. But yeah, so I traditionally thought of it as somebody who's paid for social media posts or to huck products. And now I'm open to a different definition of that. But am I an influencer? I don't look at myself that way, but I understand that people do follow what I say and what I do. So in that regard, sure.
So if you would, again, I'm going to ask that question again with like the one-liner, like what would you define an influencer as? One line, and that's kind of hard.
I still go back to, and this is just the way I've been conditioned, somebody that's paid for social media posts.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. Steve, how about yourself? Do you consider yourself an influencer? Why not? And how would you define that?
It's interesting. Yeah, I do, simply because I've been influenced before. And I was just talking with Jake Dunlap about this morning, which I believe an influencer is somebody who can inspire thought, dialogue, or action. And we're all capable of that, right? I think it's to what extent are you willing to carry it forward, which I think is kind of the topic of today. So many people say, well, I don't have anything to say. And I'm like, you talk to me all day. Like, you have all these great ideas, you have great poetry, you have whatever it is. And I'm like, so you're already saying it. You just don't want to get on a platform because you're probably afraid that you'll only get 2 likes. So you might get somebody to drop in your DMs and say something bad about what you say or whatever it is. So I think I agree. We're all influencers, but I think to the extent of the action, dialogue, or thought that you can create, I think it's varies between people, right? We're all influenced in some shape or fashion all times of the day, whether it's in person or in this event online or scrolling through LinkedIn.
Would you guys, and anyone can answer this, do you think that the term influencer, and I'd love to get comments from this too in the group, but do you think like the term influencer is taken on a negative connotation, or if why is that? Like where do you think that is? And within the business world, and obviously we're talking about LinkedIn as a platform, do you think it's even more negative, or like what are your thoughts with that? Anyone want to take that? Jared, what do you think?
Well, clearly by my one-liner, I think it's negative, but my background has led me to that. I ran a digital fashion magazine as a side project, and influencers in the fashion world are a bit different than LinkedIn influencers. So I haven't quite made that pivot completely in my head. But yeah, so for me, negative connotation, just by my sheer definition, somebody that's paid to put something out there, do they really like that product truly? And anybody who lacks integrity, if they don't like that product truly and they're doing it because they're paid, lacking integrity is a big non-starter and like a big no-no. So like that's why I look at that. Now with that said, somebody if we look at, the general consensus of the definition in this room, which is great, somebody that influences other people to do something, and how we all could be that, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And that's great. And it really leads to empowering individuals, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, 100%. Kim, any thoughts?
I think, when I think about it, I think, syntax means so much. So if I say to you, car salesman, right? Your mind immediately paints a picture of like sleazy, trying to get like car salesman. If I say businessman or business woman, whatever you want to say, it paints a very different picture. And so I think what's unfortunately happened with influencer is when we're talking about influencer in the term of somebody getting paid, to me that's a brand rep. And brand reps are people, you see them all the time. If you go to the grocery store and somebody's trying to sell Annie's macaroni and cheese and they're at the end of the aisle making the little scoop so you can try the macaroni and cheese, that's an Annie's mac and cheese brand rep. They are paid to go into Whole Foods to try to get you to eat Annie's macaroni and cheese. Or if you've gone to a bar and there's some hot girl in a Miller Lite shirt handing out Miller Lite products. That is a girl that is paid by Miller Lite to go and get you to drink and order Miller Lite. Influencers are basically this digital version of that, where I am coming in and saying, I want you to sell my coffee mug. I want you to sell my lip gloss. I am going to pay you to go into the digital sphere and tell everybody that this lip gloss is really great. So to me, what I think has happened is brand rep. There wasn't a term for that in the digital world. We know brand rep in the physical world because we've seen those people at Costco, at Whole Foods, at the bar, whatever, but there wasn't a name for that in this digital world. And so I think, unfortunately, influencer got lumped into that. But what that person actually is a brand rep.
Piling on top of that, you mentioned the Whole Foods example or a bar example. Traffic is going there already, right? And maybe, they put a celebrity up that drives traffic, but digitally it's more to me than a brand rep. It's somebody that can drive traffic, right? Like you're going to go to Whole Foods no matter what. You're going to that aisle because you need eggs and you just happen to see a dip at the end with a brand rep. Brand reps are not traffic drivers. Unless it's advertised as such, right? Like, oh, this Friday, see X person at this in-person event. That I think is where the difference happens. Influencers understood and the brand reps, but the big differentiator, in my opinion, is drive traffic, right? There's a reason why brands go to digital people, and that the qualifications to be that person are different than the brand rep in person. For sure. They're not looking at all that stuff. And so that's out there. And driving traffic is big. And even when I was in the fashion world, they would cast people based on sometimes the following, like were they an influencer and can they also drive traffic? So not just did they go with the brand, but can they drive traffic based on their reach?
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I see a couple comments here too. And I think someone said like the definition of influencer doesn't matter. I think the only reason I brought this up is because I think on LinkedIn, it's as you start stepping out, it's just a different crowd, right? So we're used to influencers on like Instagram and some of these other platforms, but on LinkedIn, I can tell you from firsthand when you start stepping out, people who you work with, people within your company might give you some funny looks because you're starting to show up on LinkedIn. Like nobody has a problem on Facebook or Instagram. On LinkedIn, it's a little different. So I'd love to just hear from each of you. And Steve, we could start with you. When did you get serious, would you say, about creating content on LinkedIn? And I'd love to hear a little bit of that background. And, how do you think it's affected your business, your overall network? I'd love to get into that. And then we can go to Jared as well afterward. Steve, what do you think?
Well, it's a great question because I didn't post anything till 3 years ago. Like once a year, I would reshare something. And then I met this guy named Jake Dunlap. happens to be putting on the event with Skaled today. And I remember thinking like, this guy has something to say. And he sure talks a lot. Like, I was like, nobody else does that. I'm like, he's kind of dropping. And then I was like, wow, he's pretty smart. He seems to know what he's talking about. And then I cold called Jake and tried to get a job with him. I remember we went over this today, and I remember he looked at me and he said, well, what do you want to do? I couldn't really answer the question. I said, I'd love to sell. And he's like, well, that's a pretty vague answer. He's like, figure out what you want to do. Let's catch up down the road. And I kept following him. And then eventually I started to do that thing where you try to post and then you delete it like an hour later because you're like, there's no way I can't have that up with one like. And it's my coworker or it's my mom or whatever. And as that progressed, what I did is I got more serious and intentional about it, like a lot of people. And then I stopped caring what I was posting as much and just the frequency of it, right? You hear that too, just post every day. And then that teeter-totter of too much, too little, what is this for? I was still employed by another company at that time, so I got all the weird looks, from the coworkers. And then I just kind of got sick of it one day because I was working for somebody who would always constantly say like, hey, here's a new press release. Everybody share this post. And I remember that's when I was like, this is the death of LinkedIn. If this is what it's come to, we're done. I'm done. I'm out. And I see less and less of that. But about a year ago, I got serious. And here's the deal. I hired somebody. So Mackenzie, you see, and I have worked together for 6 or 7 months because I chose intentionally to say, I don't know if I know how to do this well. I'm not sure what this is for, but I think I have a good idea. So just to go through and apply that thinking of what do I even want to talk about? What kind of voice do I want to have? To get intentional about it didn't happen since then. And sure, the likes go up sometimes. I can be a little bit polarizing in my topics. I'm a bit of a traditionalist, not due to age, just because I'm a stickler on the phone. And a couple of my direct messages last night were very much against that. And so I said, I'm encouraging dialogue, which is good. And so now I feel like it's to the point where regardless of the engagements or the likes, I post 3-4 times a week. I'm intentional about it. I still don't know what I'm going to talk about until about 2 minutes. I'm one of those people who literally rips a post off in about 5 minutes until I slow down and Mackenzie says, let's think about this. Not to make it so pre-planned, it seems architected, but any good writer would essentially say, like, don't just come up with it on the spot. Come up with it, store it, stuff it away, then pull it back out when it's the right time. So that's the rhythm I'm at today. So it's been about a year of serious, intentional work.
Awesome. Love that. Jared, how about you? And then we can go to you, Kim, as well.
Yeah, so I've been on LinkedIn probably 10 plus years, but I used it as an outbound seller just tactically probably until a year ago on the dot. And March 2020, and tell me if you've heard this story before. I bought Justin Welsh's playbook and then I let it sit. I didn't need it until I found myself out of a job right before COVID. And I'm like, okay, I have nothing to do. Now's the time to put it in play. To say I had a game plan before, I did not have an organized. I see Jen writing tactical game plan before. I had no idea what to do. And credit to Justin, he broke it down really well and simply. So tactically, I'm like, I need a job. I need a job. I went from, there was a 1 month period between losing my job and COVID. I went from 12 plus interviews a week to 0 overnight. And we all did it, whoever else could empathize with that. So I got to do something outside the box. I got to show up more to different events, like be on the other side of this scaled event and times a dozen a week, et cetera, or more. And I need to show up on LinkedIn. So I tactically follow the game plan. Like what's my niche? At first that really threw me off, right? Like I'm like, I sell marketing or whatever. I need to be that marketer. But let's be real, I'm in sales. I don't know as much about marketing, I didn't, as the marketers I was selling to. And quite often, whatever product we have, we don't know as much, like really, like all the hacks and stuff that people are selling to. We might know more about our product. So just like helping simplify and understanding like, hey, I do know a bit more than people at a lower level than me. And I've had some success, with people on the same level and just showing up every day. The accentuating like that, like speaking to that group, and then also how I wanted to leave people feeling, right? Like I wanted to, if you see my LinkedIn post, motivational, inspirational, or empathetic, I wanted every post to have one of those three, and I just kept doing it. So 1 year ago, March 2020, I never got my job, but was able to build it myself. So that was good.
Love it. Man, that's huge. That's huge. Kim, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'll answer your question, Joel, about how I sort of got in this LinkedIn influencer, well, I hate that word, but influencer sphere. And then also kind of weave in some like tactical, practical tips that I think will help, maybe some other people who are joining us today. But I really started on LinkedIn honestly out of what I thought was going to be a problem solved. So my company, we are a marketing agency. We work with a lot of really awesome, amazing entertainers and sports teams. Our client list is awesome people like Paul McCartney and the New York Mets and Comic-Con and Oprah. And what I was realizing is as I was working with these amazing individuals and their teams, I was getting, as Oprah would say, a lot of aha moments, a lot of little gems, a lot of tips and tricks. And I would go to brunch with my friends or meetups or happy hour, and I would repeat some of these little aha moments, or here's a tip, or have you tried this app? And friends would be like, wow, like that's amazing, Kim. Like, where did you hear this? Or I have a follow-up question. And I thought to myself, well, I now can't go back to my client, ask a follow-up question. It turns into like a 5th grade telephone tag that I'm like, this doesn't seem to work. And so I thought, well, I shouldn't just keep these aha moments and tips and tricks to myself or my friends and family who I'm seeing in real life. I should put these out into like space. And then when people ask me for tips and tricks, selfishly, I was like, then I could just have a link and I'll be like, oh, if you have a question on like what software is really hot right now in the music industry, like here's a link so that I don't have to get on the phone with you. So there's also some laziness really at play there. And so about a year and a half ago when I started doing that, I was like, let me just put out these aha moments and let me just put out and to go back into like practical tips. The 2 things that I think that are really easy starts for people to put out content are 1, what did you hear or learn from other people that you think is smart? So if a friend recommends Superhuman, the email software, to me, I'm going to make that into a post about here. Here's a really cool thing I heard about. Or number 2, what is something that you've personally listened to, experienced, gone through? I lost my job. I got hired. I got promoted. I went through a pay decrease, furloughed, whatever that you can share on. So it's either other people that you're sort of like the megaphone, or it's something that you personally went through. And that's really why I started also doing these weekly lives. I do a live every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Jake and I were just on there, which I was really fast to click and come over to here, where it's like, I don't want to just hog these really interesting CEOs and founders and clients that I get to talk to. Let's have everybody have a seat at the table. Let's all be able to join in. And so I think that when you think about practical tips for starting and creating content, if you're really, maybe shy or more of an introvert, you don't want to say things that maybe you think or that's totally fine. Like Oprah said something smart. Richard Branson said something in his book, like you can be a megaphone for other people's ideas and sort of your twist or your thoughts on things that they might have come up with.
Yeah, that's huge. I read something the other day that said, if you want to come up with content, like think of like where you were 2 years ago and what information would you give to yourself 2 years ago and start to document that way. And I think the challenge that a lot of us have is, and rightly so, we're humble and in some ways, but we have a lot of value to bring. And one of the big things that I hear from people is, I don't have value. I don't have anything to bring. Who would want to hear from me? We hear that all the time. But truth is, 2 years ago, if you've been improving, you would have so many things to impart. So I love that you said that. And that kind of moves into the next question. We're talking about tactical advice. I'd like to ask, each one of us, because I think we're all going to differ on this. But number one, like, how do you decide what to post on LinkedIn? And then what is consistency to you? And the reason I share that is, I post 3 times a day on LinkedIn. And someone just asked in the chat, don't people get sick of you? I go, no, that the algorithm deals with that. Because the algorithm isn't stupid enough to put 3 of my posts in front of every single person that I'm connected to. What I will say is I really switch up the type of content. So I don't do like 3 videos in a day. I might do a video, carousel, text post. I might throw in a poll, which obviously someone just mentioned polls are blasting up right now. But to me, I think with, you got to switch things up. So I'm big about posting multiple times a day. I think the algorithm does its job. I think there's a lot of competition, a lot more than you think. And not everybody in the 50,000 people I got following me will see every single post as well. So I'm curious to get your guys' take on this. Jared, why don't we start with you? Number one, how do you decide what to post, and then what's your kind of frequency and consistency?
So I have a combination of posts. Sometimes I'm inspired by current events or by emotions and feelings and things I'm going through, and I want to put it out there. Sometimes I just want to promote Rev Genius content, and you'll see both. And sometimes I want to put others on a pedestal. I do that quite frequently, and I just want to give. I realize that in finding my new job, creating a community, I have a space that I can help others. Like I feel pretty content personally on the path we're on as Rev Genius. So I'll put in my headline. People were jabbing me like, this member or this person stepping up, leaning in of our community. I'm like, let me use it for y'all. Okay. So with that said, I post every day. Do I post twice a day or 3 times a day? The times I'll do twice a day, frankly, it's because I need to get something out, like whether it's an event coming out or something that I'm just really hype on for the community to help drive traffic. I probably don't follow a lot of the rules as well, but a combination of just stuff that's like deep down, and I want to share myself with others. So tactically, what I find awesome, and the posts that quote unquote perform the best when I post, or when people could feel like the posts that perform the worst. And I've seen this like through others. I've seen big people like put promotional posts of events, and it does fine, but then really lean in and say, hey, like we all saw, some posts like this is what salespeople are saying. They're getting fired because of this and this and this. And speaking about, some of my internal journeys and stuff like that and struggles, like putting it out there, people respond to that because people feel that. And if you want to talk about, we could talk about engagement and all that's important. But if you want to talk about real impact, this past weekend, I threw down that like it was the 3rd year anniversary of my mom passing, and like all this like anxiety and some from that, some from other stuff. You want to talk real impact and real influence. I had 1 or 2 talks with somebody and I could hear the anxiety coming across on the other end of the phone. And because of what I went through, like being able to be there for that person, I don't care if 10,000 or 100, yes, I do for the purpose of growing the community. But for the purpose of like the real purpose, like that was really, really cool. And I've gotten messages like that. And so that's the good stuff, like trying to connect with somebody. So whatever you could do to do that, this is a long-winded answer, is how I do it.
No, that's great, man. You got to be inspired and want to connect. So I resonate with that a lot. Steve, what are your thoughts with that? Like, how do you choose what to post, and then what's your consistency look like?
Consistency, I try to remain consistent. I don't break it up into topics, but Jared brought up a good point. I think for me, when I realized LinkedIn is something you can influence people on, or at least touch is a word I would use, touch, motivate. I posted an article I did with Uncrushed about when I entered rehab. It kind of went back to those dark days of, finding my dad dead. And it was just this mess. And I was finally able to unbottle it because it was for an awesome organization. And so I shared it kind of reluctantly at the time because it was the first time, I thought, oh boy, and I just didn't care. I'm like, well, here you go. That post next to like, here's how to micro segment conversational intelligence, like that one changed my life forever, and a few other people who I was able to connect with and reach out to, and now have since become friends with. And the other one, like who cares? Like, so if I had it my way, it would be more of those conversations with other people where they can just be real and let this guard down and like all the BS that we have to put the face on and the masks and this is my workplace, this is my pro place, this is my dad face, this is my husband face. I think the more we can become one person and allow those moments to come through and we can engage with them without judgment, if you will, I think that's when people will finally feel like it's a safe place. It is, but I mean, truly feel like my work can't see this, right? And I think you should be able to post that and not have your work tied to you, but it happens to be in a title for a lot of people, and I get that. But that for me is like how I saw the scales tip, and like to Jared's point, like I saw that post he had, and that's where it's so many people were like, yeah, me too, man. I'm fully in on this because now I feel like I can read something that relates to me. So I love those kind of posts, seeing those from other people, just sharing, and earthing a little bit.
And I just wanted to clarify too, in terms of like how often you post. Like, do you have kind of like a goal for that, or like how do you measure that?
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday morning. I get up at 3:30 and I post between 4:30 and 6 because if I don't, I will forget.
Cool. So about four times a week is what you're heading to.
That's right. Yeah,
awesome.
4 times a week.
Awesome. Kim, how about you? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, building off what these guys said, I definitely overlap with some similar, is it something that I can touch on that's happening in the news right now? But I will go into, we're all friends here. I have what I call like the frozen dinner process as well, which is like, yes, every night would I love to cook an amazing, fresh, emerald winning dinner. Yes, of course I would. But there are some days where like, I'm tired, it's been a day, and we're putting in a frozen pizza and pouring a glass of wine. You know what I mean? And so for me, LinkedIn content can kind of be the same way, where I just wake up that morning and I'm like, it is a frozen pizza kind of day. And I don't know how to screen share on this program, but like there is a folder, I wish I could show you, I'm looking at it on my computer screen that literally says I'm tired. Okay. And in the I'm tired folder, I have built up frozen pizzas, if you will. So these could be text only posts, they could be videos, they could be ideas where if I'm not being sparked to life that day by something that's happening, I'm going into the I'm tired folder. And that's fine. And I noticed some people were talking about video in the chat. There are some videos in my I'm tired file, and they consist of 2 things. Are they under 60 seconds? Check. And did I put captions on them already? Check. Nothing fancy. They don't have graphics flying around or like the Gary Vee style bars. No, it's a frozen pizza dinner, my friends. Like it has captions. It's under 60 seconds. It's adding some sort of value or tip or trick. And that to me, at least for my sanity and like my own mental health, has been such a godsend.
Yeah, I love that. It really takes off the pressure. Steve, did you have something there?
No, I just really enjoyed that because that's what I've heard you're supposed to do. And I just put a little checkbox down. Do what she says.
It's so huge though, because that takes the pressure off, right? It takes the pressure of having to show up every day. And one of the things I teach people too is like have questions as well that you can start to ask yourself that can prompt ideas as well. And I think the more you can have that conversation with yourself, I also say like sometimes I scroll LinkedIn for 20 minutes and I'm engaging with other people. And what I find what will happen is as I engage with other people's content, I'll start to have ideas spark as well. And I might have a great comment and suddenly I've got a post. So sometimes the best method to use is to just consume the content, engage, support others. And I would even argue that at times supporting others is far more productive on LinkedIn. So I'd like to get into as well, let's get into the nuts and bolts, like how you use LinkedIn to grow your business. I think that's probably what a lot of people really want to know. So do you have any kind of like strategies that you have, and like how have you grown your business with LinkedIn? I know this is obviously probably a question that requires more than a 2 minutes response, but I'd love to just kind of get some tips or like just actual tangible things that you've done to grow your business through LinkedIn. So Kim, why don't we start with you this time?
Yeah, I think for me, the way I think about LinkedIn is really that it's, if I had a storefront, if like Ready Player One, if anybody's watched that movie, like if I had a little digital plot of land, how do I get people to come to my digital plot and join my party? And so I don't use LinkedIn as like let me sell you, let me get in the in-mail and sell you this ebook or click funnel craziness. It's really, how do I get you in my sphere? Because once you're in my sphere, once you're in this community, once you know, like, and trust the stuff that I'm putting out, then to me, the sales stuff comes secondly. So I think first and foremost, it's really about community building, the way I look at LinkedIn and the way of getting smart, talented, interesting people in that pool. And the way to do that, getting back to like the tactical things, is I think on a 101 level, if you see that LinkedIn has a new feature, polls, live, newsletter, just know, kind of like think in your head, the algorithm's going to prefer that. Whatever it is, whatever new shiny object that they're putting out, the algorithm wants to promote that new shiny object. So if you see that something new pops up on your home screen, or there's some new feature like creator mode just launched last week,
yes,
do that. Like whatever the shiny object is, like just do it. Even if you're like, well, I don't know what to say in a poll. Doesn't matter. The algorithm already loves it because it's new and shiny. So again, going back to like the practical, like brass tacks of it, I would say if it's new and shiny on LinkedIn, use it because it's only going to build your community.
It's interesting you say that. I know when the video first came out, you could literally take a selfie of yourself walking down the street and get millions of views. And I think creator mode is really exciting. And I think, the fact that you guys are all attending this conference as well shows that you're looking to create, or you're looking to engage more. LinkedIn, you switch that button over once it rolls out to everybody. You can put a video on your profile. You can hashtags are going to become more relevant. There's a lot of things that I think LinkedIn are going to be testing. And to your point, creator mode. How do you do that? Well, you become a creator. So I love that. Jared, what about you, man? I love the fact that you built a community, right? Which I think is, again, it's sort of becoming a buzzword in marketing, is like community building. I think Clubhouse has kind of accelerated that as well, that idea of building community, but it's been around, right? So what are some tips that you have for like just building like solid community on the platform? Like what do you do? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I'll answer this a couple ways, because I know there's probably some salespeople out here as well. Like, if you want to target somebody one-to-one in general, talk tactical, I'll use real life examples from an SDR that booked 47 meetings in sub 30 days. Okay, like you want to talk tactics, only talk in comment section. Don't post, no cold calls, no emails, 100% LinkedIn comments with your ICP. Imagine that. He's going to hit 55 or 60 booked meetings in a month, cold, with his ICP, new product, all that. I didn't do that, but I do recognize that. Now, Kim, is spot on there. I think when you're building a community, though, in addition to that, you want to bring in people that are the right fit for your community, right? I don't know if I'm the first one to come up with this acronym. We all know ICP, or if we don't, it's ideal customer profile, ideal member profile, right? It might be one and the same. You have a list of target companies that you want to be perfect for your community, like anybody in software as a service. Okay, how do you bring it down even more? Okay, companies of a certain size or whatever. You have to get those people in your network. You have to. And how do you do it? Just don't even write anything. Just click connect a couple times, and then have them be a part of it. And then when you have content that speaks to them, you'll get more people in, and you could literally message them as well. And then you could do other organics. Like we could talk full community growing hacks, but that's a whole nother thing. I was
gonna ask too. Doug just asked here. I think LinkedIn enables building an audience, not a community. Obviously, you built. I mean, I've seen your community, man.
You have to take it off. You have to take it off.
Awesome.
You have to say we're going somewhere else, right? And well, why? LinkedIn groups shut down, or if they didn't, they're not as active, right? Like
the notifications suck. The notifications.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're still active. So that's where you would build it. Them shutting that down opened a huge opportunity for communities outside of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is great to broadcast to a lot of people. It's great to sell one-to-one, but to build a community, as Doug said, is not optimal. So that's why people are going to other places for that. And so I guess right time, right place.
I want to point out one of the things you said earlier, though, that I think is huge. Like, you promote other people's content from your group. And I think that is genius. A lot of times people are thinking, hey, the best way for me to get my name out is to push my own content out. But supporting people within your community, I've never seen it backfire. Like, when you share somebody's posts or you highlight them, it does not backfire. Even if you get one like, if you share someone's post, they will always appreciate it. So I love that you mentioned that earlier as well.
Yeah, and just to build on that, and this is great. Like, oh man, I don't want to take up too much space, but like in my headline, like Tom Slocum and Bree Sprague, they've leaned in so much. You take my headline, I'll do posts about you. You get 50 likes, I don't care. Like, and you need to tie with anything you do, tie into the universe and universal principles. Give. That's the bottom line. So whether we're talking LinkedIn, whether we're talking business, whether we're talking getting clients, give.
It's huge. I love it. Steve, what are your thoughts on this?
The truth that I found out is that it's simply give and you shall receive. And if you give without expecting, if you want somebody to pay attention, you pay attention to them. And if it's authentic and it's not so calculated, you'll suddenly notice how popular you are simply because you're giving and not expecting anything. And in turn, those universal principles that Jared mentioned do happen. Obviously, you can get tactical on a sales level. And yeah, if you go out and you're very tactical about your approach, and even if you're semi-authentic, just to be real, it will work. You'll be surprised. Now, if you're really authentic and you're doing it so it doesn't even look like you're doing what you're doing, it will really, really work. It just takes time. It takes time to do everything the right way. So, for me, 10 of the 14 people I first hired all met through LinkedIn, not through a job ad, through other people. You can back channel pretty easily because you can just, guilty by association kind of thing. And you can ask pretty simple questions that way. So I just think this universal law carries over to LinkedIn as much as anything else. I mean, the people at least that show up in my feed seem to, for the most part, trying to be doing some real good stuff. I mean, and then of course you get people promoting their product, and that's cool too. Like, I mean, why not? That's okay too. But the people who aren't doing that really pop out even more. When you can't fully tell what it is they do, but a lot of people like it, I'm following them because there's some magic in that thing that's working out pretty well for them, and I'm interested in learning more about them. Not even for my own benefit at this time. That's why I go there. I don't go to LinkedIn to post. I go to see other people's posts. It took me the longest time to want to post because I'm like, no, I just like reading other people's stuff. And then someone's like, you should post. And I said, what do I post? They're like, I don't know, repost what they posted. I said, curate content? They said, yeah, there's a whole, what's his name? Jeremy Donovan is from Sales Loft. All he does is curate content and he gets massive traction every day. That's his thing. That's what he chooses to do. So I guess for me, it's about that. I love that Jared said that because that if you do it with that in mind and you start giving before you expect to receive, that's the first thing you should do day one, and it will work out wildly for you. But you do have to post in order for people, I think, to truly do it and do what Jared said. Post about other people. Why not? But, make sure you put their name in the comments, not in the post, because the algorithm does not like that.
For sure. I hate the algorithm. I'm just joking. I love I actually really like the algorithm in some ways because I think it tests how good your content is. And I actually have changed my mindset on this where like if a post doesn't do well, it's a great learning experience. You got to break it down. Why didn't it? Like what happened? It can get better. Anyway, the algorithm's a whole nother issue. All right. So we're kind of coming up to the 50-minute mark here. So I did want to open it up as well for people if you've got questions to jump on the stage and ask some questions if you've got a particular question for somebody. But before we do that, why don't we just go around and one piece of advice, like the biggest piece of advice that you could give someone that's today thinking, okay, I'm going to start this LinkedIn journey. Like what's advice that you would have wanted to know a year ago or 2 years ago, 3 years ago when you first started creating content on LinkedIn? So I'm open for anyone to go first on this one. Whoever wants to take it.
I'll go first. I would say I'm a very visual learner. I know everybody learns in different ways. I'm very visual and I like copying homework. instead of doing the homework myself. So I would say the biggest like tip or piece of advice I would say is pick 2 or 3 people or 4 people on LinkedIn that have a decent amount of followers that you feel sort of like has your vibe or kind of on your same speed, and kind of copy their homework, kind of like look and see what they're doing. I think sometimes we try to reinvent the wheel. I think especially when we try something new, we constantly think that we have to be amazing at it from the beginning. And I wish I could get in a time machine and like go back 2 years and tell like that version of Kim, like just copy homework. Like someone else has already figured this out.
Yeah, I love that. 100%. Steve, how about you?
The anatomy of
a
well, I saw Jimmy's question, and Jimmy's from down the hall. I literally every day go, Jimmy, you can start posting on LinkedIn, and I see him. He goes, "Yeah, man, today's the day." And like he's posting on LinkedIn. He's asking,
"Come on, Jimmy, let's go,
Jimmy.
Man."
He's doing it, and I think the anatomy of a LinkedIn post, right? So even people who write poetry use structure, right? So
sure. Here's
some advice that's very tactical, right? In the first line that you write, assume that's all anybody's going to read. So if it's not anything good in that first line, then don't worry about the rest because they probably won't read it. So first line, say your thing. I never used to understand why people did the sentences with the space in the sentences.
Broetry.
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of laugh at it now, and there's something to do with the algorithm. But then, give the broetry, give the bulk of the meaning of what you're trying to say. And then, if it's a call to action or whatever in comments, there is an anatomy and structure that does work. Just look at what other people are doing and you'll be like, oh, that makes sense what Steve said. Start with a line that's impactful. Oh, they do that every time. So that's my advice. That's my one piece of advice for the day.
Love it. Great advice. Jared, what about you, man?
I finally wrote down a concise sentence here. And my piece of advice for LinkedIn concisely is the same piece of advice I'd give for anything. Okay, so take that with a grain of salt. Like one, show up. Algorithm be damned. Be true to yourself. Okay? If polls yeah, sure. No. Do what you want. Give, and give with zero expectation to ever be paid back.